As I stood outside the historic Dakota building in New York City, my heart raced with anticipation. The evening sun cast long shadows across the cobblestone streets, and the iconic architecture of the Dakota loomed above me, its dark, ornate facade a stark contrast to the vibrant city around it. I had heard countless stories about the mysterious occurrences within these walls, but nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to experience. The Dakota had always held an air of mystique, shrouded in legends and lore. Its grandeur was undeniable, a timeless testament to a bygone era, but it was the tale of the weeping lady that had drawn me here, a haunting story passed down through generations. As I entered the building, the atmosphere inside was heavy with history. The dimly lit lobby seemed to whisper secrets of the past, and the hushed voices of residents echoed through the marble corridors. My journey had brought me to apartment 72, where the legendary crying lady was said to reside. I had secured permission to enter, thanks to a friend of a friend who lived in the Dakota. The resident had shared stories of the inexplicable sounds that filled the apartment at night, the chilling sensation of being watched, and of course, the weeping that would echo through the halls. My footsteps echoed as I approached the apartment door. I knocked softly, half expecting not to receive an answer, but to my surprise, a gentle, elderly woman opened the door. Her name was Mrs. Anderson, and she had lived in the Dakota for decades. She welcomed me inside with a warm smile, her eyes filled with a hint of sadness. The apartment was filled with antique furniture and dimly lit by a chandelier that seemed to have seen better days. The air was thick with nostalgia, and the room seemed to hold its breath as if waiting for something to happen. As we settled into a pair of ornate armchairs, Mrs. Anderson began to share her story. I moved into the Dakota with my late husband nearly 50 years ago. She began, her voice trembling with age. We were young and in love, excited to make this grand place our home, but from the very beginning, we knew something was amiss. She went on to describe the strange occurrences that had haunted her over the years. Whispers in the night, footsteps in empty rooms, and the most unsettling of all, the sound of a woman sobbing, her eyes filled with tears as she recounted these chilling experiences, and it was clear that they had taken a toll on her. Mrs. Anderson believed that the spirit of a woman, the infamous crying lady, inhabited the Dakota. According to local legends, the crying lady was a young woman who had lived in the building in the early 20th century. She had been a talented musician, but her life had been filled with tragedy. She lost her love in World War I, and her music career never took off. Heartbroken and desolate, she had died by suicide in apartment 72. As Mrs. Anderson spoke, the room seemed to grow colder, and the once dim lighting flickered ominously. I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease, as if the crying lady herself was present, listening to her story being told once more. I decided to spend the night in apartment 72, hoping to witness the paranormal activity for myself. Mrs. Anderson graciously agreed to my request and left me with a heavy heart. Alone in the apartment, I felt a sense of foreboding, as if the walls themselves held a dark secret. The night was quiet at first, with only the distant sounds of the city filtering through the windows, but as the clock struck midnight, the atmosphere in the room began to change. A faint, mournful melody filled the air, as if a piano were playing in the distance. My heart raced as I realized there was no piano in the apartment. Then, I heard it, the sound of a woman weeping. It was a haunting, sorrowful cry that seemed to come from all directions. My breath caught in my throat as I searched the room, but there was no one there. The weeping grew louder, more intense, and I could feel a presence in the room with me. Terrified, I fled the apartment, leaving behind the ghostly cries of the crying lady. As I descended the Dakota's grand staircase, I couldn't help but wonder about the tragic soul that still haunted those hallowed halls. The legend of the crying lady of the Dakota would continue to endure, passed down through generations, as a reminder of the mysterious and paranormal forces that can sometimes inhabit even the most elegant of places. As for me, I would forever carry the memory of that fateful night, when I came face to face with a ghostly presence that had lingered for a century, trapped in a timeless sorrow. Over the years, the legend of the crying lady would attract more visitors to the Dakota, all hoping to catch a glimpse of the ghostly figure or hear her mournful cries. The building's reputation as one of the most haunted in New York City only grew stronger, with countless paranormal investigations and documentaries adding to its mystique. Some skeptics dismissed the stories as mere superstition, attributing the sounds to the building's age and creaky pipes. However, those who had experienced the phenomena firsthand, like Mrs. Anderson and myself, knew that there was something otherworldly at play within the Dakota's walls. Intrigued by my encounter, I delved deeper into the history of the Dakota and the life of the crying lady. I discovered old newspaper clippings and documents that painted a more detailed picture of her tragic life. Her name was Emily, and she had indeed been a gifted pianist. She had fallen in love with a soldier named Daniel during the turbulent years of World War I. Their love had been passionate, but it was cut short when Daniel was deployed overseas and tragically killed in action. Devastated by Daniel's death, Emily's music career began to crumble, and she fell into a deep depression. She moved into the Dakota seeking solace but found none. Her suicide note, found in the very apartment where I had experienced the haunting, revealed her overwhelming grief and sense of loss. As I pieced together Emily's story, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of sympathy for her. Her life had been marked by tragedy and unfulfilled dreams, and her spirit seemed to be trapped in a never-ending cycle of sorrow. I continued my research, reaching out to experts in the field of paranormal investigation. Many were intrigued by the Dakota's haunted reputation and were eager to explore the mysteries it held. Together, we conducted extensive investigations, using the latest technology to capture evidence of the supernatural. We recorded unexplained footsteps, captured chilling EVP, electronic voice phenomena, recordings, and even witnessed objects moving on their own. Despite the mounting evidence, the crying lady remained elusive. Her appearances were sporadic, and her weeping, while heart-wrenching, was never consistent. It was as if she retained her ethereal sense of mystery even in the afterlife. As time passed, I couldn't help but wonder about the nature of the crying lady's existence. Was she a restless spirit, forever tormented by her tragic past, or was she trying to convey a message from beyond?